This is the UC Hunting Properties Podcast, your home for all things recreational land. Our goal, to help you stand on your investment. Hey guys, welcome back to the UC Hunting Properties Podcast. We got a special one for you today. We just set the booth up here at the Iowa Deer Classic. I don't know, Luke, but I think I'm going on like 20 to 25 years of coming to this thing. Aging myself a little, but we had Bungie on here last weekend, and I thought I'd been to every one of them, but in reality, he said they actually started in the 90s in Waterloo, and now it's here. But
I had no idea on that. I thought it started here.
That's what I thought, too, and it dang sure has blowed up here.
Yep.
But, yeah, special guest today, Luke Nissen's joining us. He's an agent for Hawkeye Farm Management and Realty down in Elbia, God's Country, Elbia. He's also one of our Rockstar members of UC Hunting Properties. Love to have him on board, and he handles some pretty awesome properties.
Appreciate you having me today.
You bet. You're coming off a pretty banger year or two there, stud, huh?
It's been busy. You know, when you do the right things and treat people right, get repeat business, word spreads.
Good things happen.
Good things happen, that's for sure. But, yeah, we've been really blessed to work with a lot of great people this last year. A lot of recreational farms, and then me, myself as well, really dived into the farmland auctions these last few years, and just getting good results for people, and everyone's been pretty pleased.
Absolutely. Now and I don't remember the specifics, Luke, I'm sure you do, but yeah, the farmland auction specifically that you had here not far from Des Moines last year, was that your biggest sale to date?
Yes, in total acres and volume, what you could say, all in one package.
Yeah,
yes.
multi-million-dollar deal. Yep.
That was 560, some acres of just nice, productive black dirt. Yep.
Iowa farm ground, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Nope, that's awesome. Luke's kind of carved his way with rec farms, and I would argue you're known as, kind of the hunting guy, which is awesome, kind of goes hand in hand with what we're doing. But after getting to know you, Luke, and knowing your story a little bit about, where you're from in Iowa, your farming background, and obviously now the fact that you're down in Elbia or calling Southern Iowa home, that's what I'd like to dive into a little bit today. We can talk about your history as far as, I guess I would call it pedigree in the hunting world, because obviously you've done some camera stuff, you kind of navigated those waters, but I guess the thing that's interesting to me, and actually I even want to learn some, I grew up hunting, very similar terrain to what you guys have, like in Elbia or in southern Iowa. Northeast Iowa was very similar. Probably I would even go as far as saying rougher, more topography. But you grew up in the plumb opposite.
Yeah, I mean, where I grew up, you got open cornfields and terraces and wide open country, and if you see a tree, you're lucky.
Yeah. And if it's there, it won't be there long, because they're gonna doze it under and plant some corn.
Yeah, me and my old man get into some heated arguments about some of his tree pulling endeavors.
Sure. Well, I loved it just this last year on Midwest Whitetail, and I don't remember the guy's name, maybe you do, but he spent his whole year hunting, what I would consider the stuff you grew up in, the traditional big ag country, with, maybe a strip here or there of some cover, and he killed one on the ground that was just an absolute cranker. And I was like, that's got to be similar to what Luke grew up hunting. But, dude, you killed a lot of big deer in that country. So let's dive into that a little.
Yeah, it's when I was growing up, so I don't really necessarily come from a hunting family per se. My grandpa pheasant hunted a little bit, took my brother and I rabbit hunting when we were younger, 22s, BB guns type of thing. But
the fun stuff,
yeah. But, growing up on a family farm, it was dad and grandpa farming together. They didn't hire anybody to do any of the work. It was just them. So
that's why they had kids, so that you could do the work.
Me and my brother we were brought into the world to work. But anyway, so most of the time, in the spring and fall, like it's work time. We're getting the crops in, getting the crops out.
Absolutely.
So there were times when I was younger where I got in a little bit of trouble for running off and trying to hunt. But basically on the bow hunting side of things, I was pretty much aside from looking at some magazines or watching some videos, just self-taught. I mean, no one else in my family owned a bow. And I think it was in 7th grade. My mom and dad had flip phones.
Sure.
I'd get home from school. Mom would drive me to the farm where we had set up a tree stand for me. She would drop me off
In the one tree.
in the one tree. I'd get dropped off, and she'd give me her flip phone and say, call me when you want picked up.
Sure.
And being at that age when coyotes start howling or a badger walks by or
boogeyman.
sometimes the phone calls came a little earlier than expected. But I always thought when I was younger, it's like, how in the heck am I going to do this? Just because there's so much wide open. It's like, where do you begin?
I think, and not to interrupt you, Luke, but I mean, I've kind of been all over the country, and when you tell somebody you're from Iowa, and if they're a hunter, the first thing they want to talk about is, that's the big buck mecca. And obviously, yes, it is.
But we're 8% timber.
You got it. And and that's what I was going to say is most people think of Iowa, because they see it on TV, whether it's down in southern Iowa or up in northeast Iowa, and they see the trees and the topography. But in reality, Luke just hit a point. I mean, 8% of the entire state is timber. That is nothing.
No.
Most of our state's wide open cornfields, bean fields, hay fields. I mean, just rolling acres of ag.
Yeah, I would say about 95% of the video content created on whitetail deer hunting in Iowa comes from the southern tier.
100% it does.
Southern 2 counties across the.
Yeah, the bottom 2 counties all the way across the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But I only tee that up that way because, like I said, then most people that come to Iowa, and I don't care if you're coming, up and down on 35 or across on 80, most of what you're exposed to is what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Big 640 sections of solid ag, and you being from that, but now having been in both, this is interesting. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but
no, you're good.
I did kind of want to tee that up for people because realistically, you are either where the deer are or you're not, and there's really not much in between.
No, there's not. It took until I got a little bit older to start, realizing, hey, there are some good deer around. You just got to be a little crafty and go out and find them, just because the densities are so much lower.
Sure.
And they cover so much more territory, especially when the rut hits.
I mean, they're probably more like Kansas.
Oh, absolutely.
In that farm ground.
I think so too. And then, after a while, I started doing some mule deer hunting with my bow and open country stuff, and I love that, which makes sense from where I grew up.
Totally makes sense.
Yep. Get behind the glass and try and find them.
And then go.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and that's the other phenomenon, I guess. You get into, I'm generically saying central and western Iowa.
Yep.
The big ag fields, the big money tillable. Like when I think about that, it goes from having arguably endless cover, when the corn's all 7, 8, 9 foot tall, and then when it leaves, you go to virtually no cover.
Yeah.
And I know they've, ear tagged or radio collared deer, and they can prove that there are deer that literally live in a cornfield basically the entire year.
I've witnessed it.
Yeah, I mean, you grew up around it.
Yeah.
But the other fact I'll drop, because I think it's relevant to the conversation we're having, is there is at least a Boone and Crockett registered in every county in the state of Iowa.
I didn't know that, but
every county has at least a Boone and Crockett registered.
Now, does everyone have a 200-incher?
I gotta say no.
Yeah, probably not.
I'm gonna say no, and as well as I mean, it seems like the 200s are coming out of the same pockets over and over and over. But I don't know. That'd be a cool stat to do a little research on. But
one thing I want to add too is when people think of Iowa, they go, "Oh, 200-inch deer." They're freaking hard to find.
100%.
I've never seen one.
I've well, you know how serious I am about this whole thing, and I've been that way since I was I'm 43. From about the time I would say I was 18 on, I've been pretty serious, and obviously it's escalated, right? The more big deer you shoot, the more, or the bigger deer you want to shoot, and so on. But all these years, growing up right on the fringe of El-McKee County, the top Boone and Crockett producing county in the state, I've hunted one deer that's definitively over 200.
Yeah.
That's it.
They're unicorns, man.
I always joke, and I'm like, it's the equivalent of us having a kid that's going to make the NFL.
Oh, sure.
Like, so I think 200, especially, gosh, for sure in the last 5 to 7 years, 200 gets thrown around very loosely.
Yeah.
Oh, they're a dime a dozen. I'm like, not even close.
Yeah. You hear
Not even close.
my balls just get this big when people are like, there's one there, one of them there. I'm like,
Right.
what? What are you talking about?
Well, and if you think about just the oddity of the genetic mix it even takes to get a deer 200, that's number one. And then you layer in the fact, even if it's got the best genetics in the world, it's probably not going to crack 200 until it's at least 4.
Yeah.
So.
And a lot of them are getting shot at 3.
Exactly. So my point is the deck is 1,000,000% stacked. I mean, I think this is eons ago, but I did a research paper in college about deer farming in general. And one of the things they covered was, genetically speaking, a deer at maturity is supposed to be an 8-pointer, and it's supposed to be like a 130.
Sure.
And that's across the board, you know what I mean? So, yeah, we're blessed with genetics here, and we got all the nutrition in the world. But the reality is, like, to crack that code to hit 200, it really is kind of a unicorn Sasquatch thing.
Yeah, it's a once in a lifetime.
But anyway,
deal,
back to you, Luke. I think we teed up the concept here in Iowa, and obviously we're very blessed to be here in Iowa because it's world class no matter how you look at it. But kid, you're growing up, you're hunting the flat country, you start dabbling into mule deer hunting. Take me from there on your hunting roller coaster you've been on.
Well, it's been a long journey of learning, and first thing I want to say to anybody maybe thinking of getting into hunting is be prepared to work your butt off and try and fail and occasionally get lucky.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to take, and it's just, a lot of time. I'm not sure where to go from there.
How did you get, obviously you started killing big deer when you were pretty young, Luke, but then you kind of got into the TV stuff. So, I mean, where did that all connect, or how did that all start?
Yeah, so first off, I when I was younger, I told people I was going to hunt on TV for a job, and they laughed at me. Told people that throughout high school and stuff like that. But anyway, I went to college at Northwest Missouri State University.
Boy, I've had some long nights down there, but that's a whole nother
Maryville's
podcast.
A good old town.
Oh, brother, yes. That's a redneck Iowa city, and I'm all in favor.
Yeah, everybody likes to have a good time there. That's for sure.
That is a fact.
Good football team too.
Very good.
Got an ag business degree from there, and actually got my real estate license my sophomore year of college.
So you were literally in college when you started dabbling.
Yeah, and the real estate classes were taken. I remember one semester, I think I was taking 15 or 18 credits and getting my license, taking my test at the same time. I thought it was going to be the end of me.
Yeah.
But let's just say I got my real estate license, and my actual college classes slacked a little bit.
On that note, though, Luke, I'm intrigued now because I did not know that, first off. But what in your mind said, hey, go get your real estate license when you were literally a sophomore? I mean, did you have a family hook? Did you have – something got you there?
Yeah, so there was a real estate broker who lived close to there, and I was doing some odd jobs for him. Just needed money during college.
Sure.
Was hanging stands. He actually had a guiding business.
Okay.
So I was helping him with some, cameras, stands, stuff like that.
Yep.
And we got to know each other pretty well, and I spent a lot of time with him. He's like, you need to get your real estate license. You'd be good at this. I mean, the hunting stuff.
Yeah.
You grew up with the ag background. You know that like the back of your hand. He said it'd be a no-brainer. So I got it and just kind of went from there. So
sure.
This would be my 13th year with a license.
So you graduate college, presumably.
Yep.
Did you dive straight into real estate full-time the second you were done with college?
I did not. That's where the video stuff kind of took in.
Okay.
I just did it part-time. Actually, after my junior year, I got an internship with Midwest Whitetail doing video stuff.
Yep.
Finished that one fall, and they're like, we need you to come work for us. So I bombed out of college and finished a semester of college online and started working for them full time.
Right on.
So I worked for Midwest Whitetail with a really good group of guys from, it would have been fall of 2013 through 2016.
So that's
up to 2016.
that's clearly where you got handy with the camera, but also on the the editing and just the whole concept of what goes into outdoor TV.
Yeah, for sure. And
Nice.
that semi-live format, man, there was a lot of late nights.
Yeah.
There was a lot of nights where we were
Hammering.
up all night long.
Well, you have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff doesn't.
Footage come in at 9 o'clock at night, and you got a show coming out at 7 in the morning.
It's game time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of monsters and.
Okay. So that was the hook. I was curious about that because, like I said, I knew you dabbled into it, but I had no idea that you did the internship and then worked for Midwest Whitetail.
Yeah, my stories, I've kind of been all over a little bit, weaving in and out of things. But anyway, and then once I finished up doing the video stuff, I moved back home for a while. And
in what town is home, Luke?
Audubon.
Audubon. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Moved back home, had a custom ag business doing CRP seeding and cover crop drilling, and then helping with the family farm stuff for a couple years before I dived full time into real estate.
Yep.
So
at what point did you pull the plug and move to Elbia? How did that whole connection with the guys in Elbia happen?
Yeah, I met them when I was working doing work for Midwest Whitetail,
because
it was based out of Albia, you know.
Yep.
So I got to be really good friends with the Ammons family and built a really good, trust with them and hung my hat there.
Yeah.
So
one thing kind of led to another.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
And license wise, you're Iowa exclusively, or do you?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't border jump into Missouri or anything.
Nope.
Got you.
Too busy in Iowa.
Well, that's a good problem.
Yep.
And last time I checked, just land values in general, doing business in Iowa is a pretty good fit.
Yeah, for sure.
Right on. All right, I'm shutting up. Back to hunting.
All right, back to hunting.
All right, so you moved home. You're back to Audubon. Go from there. You're running your business. At some point, you transition back to Elbia. Get me there.
Yeah. No, when I decided to go full-time real estate, that's when I moved back to Albia, where I had been. I just knew being in the office and being around the guys.
Steel sharpens steel, right? Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, when it's tough doing real estate part-time. You got to dive full-time in. You got to be on the phone with your clients daily, checking what's available. You got to be in the office.
You got to be on the hunt, right?
You got to be. It's a grind,
right?
You got to be. And when people need stuff done, someone calls, says they want an offer written up. I want to be able to do that in 2 minutes.
Yep.
I want to drop everything I'm doing, write their offer, get it to them, get them signed.
Make hay when the sun shines.
Yeah, exactly. So I moved back there, but you're really wanting to know about the hunting.
Yeah,
things.
I mean, I love this background because it kind of paints the picture. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know you were killing big deer, before you've been in Elbia, and obviously I would expect nothing less now that you're, in that country. But in the same breath, like, what I'd like to dissect a little, Luke, is tactic-wise on what you grew up, how you learned to bow hunt, and what you were applying in, I'm going to call it Western Iowa.
Sure.
Versus now hunting the bluff country. And, I mean, clearly you never took a break on knocking them down.
Yeah. Well, one thing I got to say about what I've always hated since I was younger, hunting the more open stuff, is getting in the mornings.
Yeah.
Because you have no idea where they're going to be.
And that's long before guys were using thermal binoculars and stuff. And
you get out of your truck and it's wide open country and it's flat and there's little cover.
Right.
Maybe you're lucky if a cornfield's still in or something like that.
Or if the stubble's just tall enough.
It's like just getting in the mornings was such a pain in that regards. And when I was little, I was thinking, man, I'm about half tempted to dig a freaking tunnel to the tree that I'm hunting in so I can crawl through that tunnel and then just get in the tree. So that's always been difficult in the open country. And one thing I'll have to say too, is I've learned over the years is get them shot before they get with a doe.
Oh, I think that's a fact everywhere.
Everywhere, but the rut ranges
out there, yeah, they're making bigger loops.
It's probably like Kansas. I mean,
it's got to be close.
I've seen where a buck will be literally 3 miles from where I just saw him the day before, type of stuff.
Sure.
Topography is a really big deal.
Yep.
Really, really big deal. Especially trying to get in and hunt in a certain spot and get out.
How big of a learning gap was it when you started hunting more, in the timber, I guess, or in the ridges and stuff, like, I mean, did it come natural, or was it, I mean, did you, I don't know how to ask what I'm asking, but I mean,
Yeah.
like, I think about how we have to hunt, and basically you're either hunting the top or you're hunting the bottom.
Yeah.
And if you're hunting the bottom, you better understand thermals. You better understand what's going to happen, when the sun comes up, when the sun goes down. Like, it's different than hunting rolling terrain even.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or did you just learn fire by baptism? I mean, you make enough mistakes, you
Oh,
start changing.
I made enough mistakes to write a whole damn book about. But yeah, it's the same there too. You want to try if you want to try and get one, you want to get some elevation so you could see some stuff.
For sure.
And two, yeah, just playing the winds. I avoid bottoms at all costs.
Right. No, and I think, like, generically speaking, it's a pretty safe play, right?
Yeah.
And I would argue I'm kind of the same mindset. And then, in my opinion, there is the time to dive in too. Like, when it's right, it's right. You can get away with some stuff that you definitely normally wouldn't. But I was just curious because, like I said, I've never, don't get me wrong, done a lot of mule deer stuff, spot and stalk on the ground. But I would give mule deer about maybe a tenth of the credit I would give the keenness of a whitetail. So I guess I don't count it that way. Like, I don't look at mule deer hunting helping me craft my whitetail game. I've actually thought of it the opposite.
Whitetail's helping you with mule deer.
I think so.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I think we're overcautious as whitetail guys, or whitetail guys first.
Yeah.
But in the same, like, get close to a big animal, I mean, keeping your shit together is a big part of it too.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. One thing that I've noticed and started doing a long time ago is, since you can see more, you're able to know exactly what's happening downwind of you.
Yep.
If at all possible, you figure out where they're coming from, give them the wind.
Yeah.
And side saddle off to the side.
Well, and I like that, side saddle off to the side. You're 100% right, because most people, I don't think they can even conceptually understand almost right for them, almost wrong for you, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
The goal is that literally you're blowing your wind in their general direction, but because of a terrain feature or the tree you picked or whatever, they're still going to quarter into that wind, but they're not going to get you. But by the time they're there, you're killing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my
Sounds easy.
That's
but
my
it's,
secret sauce for you.
Yeah, and I've told a million people that, and it's still,
it's
gotta
hard.
think about it.
Yeah, and especially in the big timber country, it's like, man, they're usually coming from the cover.
Yep.
Do I want to be blowing my scent in there? Where are they coming from?
Yeah, where do you blow it?
Yeah, it gets a little dicey, but that's one thing that has really worked well for me. I will say some of my better bow kills, they've came from the same direction that the wind was blowing into.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've literally, the only, and this is, you're gonna shit when I say this, but the only deer I've ever, mature deer, let me back up, the only big mature deer I've ever killed, or hunted even for that matter, that didn't have the wind in his favor was when I was hunting that 200-inch deer. He would literally walk, it was almost backward, Luke. Like, and I don't know how to explain it, but I almost wonder if that's how he stayed alive. I know that sounds a little weird.
Yeah.
But oftentimes he would do opposite of what I was predicting. Because in my mind,
you're thinking this is what this deer should be doing to survive.
Correct. And he'd come on the same trail, but he'd literally come from the opposite way. And I'm like, he walked into his bedding area literally with the wind blowing with him, not into him, or he wasn't even quartering into it. And I was like, and it was multiple times.
Yeah, for sure.
But I got thinking about that, and I'm like, maybe he can't smell. Maybe he's doing everything with his eyes, or you make every excuse you can make for not killing him. But like, in the same breath, when I really stop and think about all the big deer I've ever killed, virtually every one of them was quartering into the wind when I killed them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it was blowing directly in their face, or I had the wind perfect, or however you want to look at it. He was using the wind to smell/see a bigger area than if, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
They're smart and they quarter into the wind. And I like I said, I've spent hours explaining this to somebody, but it is hard. Like there's this, I guess I'd call it a skill set with interpreting topography and understanding a deer's language and how they're going to want to move. And I hate when people say, "Oh, he's a smart old buck." I personally don't think it exists. I don't think it's such a thing. I think they're crazy instinctive.
Yeah.
And I think the tendency is the older they get, the less time they spend up moving in general in daylight. In general.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and you bring up a really good point there, but and I'm no pro expert by any means, but I'm sure you've noticed the same over the years. Each deer has their own personality, things
for
they like to do. I mean, me, for example, they're like people. On a random Tuesday night, you might find me rolling through Hardee's getting a big old Frisco burger and curly fries.
Sure.
So just they got their tendencies of things they like to do, and I've seen a couple different situations where one buck would want to live in the corn and never come out of it.
Yep.
At all, versus another open country deer that would lay down in CRP, huge CRP field, and you look across it and think there's nothing out there, and you'd be sitting there watching for him, and
poof,
there he would be.
Yeah.
They all got their different little things that they like to do, and
I'll even add to that. I mean, I think you're right. I think every deer's unique, and they're going to do what they're going to do, and I think they do it mostly on experience, right? Like what's worked for them and where they've stayed safe and stayed alive. They stick to their guns because the other thing I'd stress is 99.9% of the time, I think they're very, very, very much creatures of habit.
Yeah. And probably a lot of it goes back to what Mom taught.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee it does.
Mm-hmm.
But that I do chuckle, when guys are like, "Oh, he's a smart old buck." I'm like, I don't think they are. I think their brain's the size of our fist, and I think clearly they can't think complex like us. I don't think they have long-term memory. I think they're just very instinctive, and all those instinctive traits is what makes them buggers to kill.
They got a sixth sense,
but we overthink it, right?
I
think in most cases, especially when you start hunting a 5, 6, 7-year-old type deer, we're probably our own worst enemy 90% of the time. Yeah,
most likely.
But
anyway,
you obviously crack the code because you've killed plenty of them.
Well, I mean, if you're out there long enough, you're going to get lucky. I've had my fair share of screw-ups, so.
Oh, me too. Me too. If I had every one that should have been on my wall, I'd look like a hero.
Yeah, there's a few arrows I'd like to get pulled back into my bow as well.
Right. No, that's it. I'm with you on that. Like I said, I've hunted. Well, I can even go as far as saying I've shot a 200-plus inch deer, but I do not have them on my wall. So.
Maybe that'll change this fall.
That's a nightmare. I got a couple good ones.
I don't want to open a wound there for you.
Dump a little salt in there.
Yeah.
What do you got? Speaking of this fall, what do you got for hunts coming, Luke? You got any big deer you're eyeballing or still chasing, or what's your story?
That is a really good question. I'm kind of in a thinking mode right now. I got a lot of different preference points in a lot of different western states, but I should be able to draw a Nebraska rifle.
Nice.
Mule deer tag.
There's some tankers in Nebraska, man.
Yeah.
Tankers.
Yeah. Southwest Nebraska. I got a buddy. He's got a family ranch out there.
Perfect.
So that might be in the works. Probably.
How hard a tag is that, Luke?
I think it's a 2-3 year draw.
So not crazy.
For a rifle permit. Archery, you could go. I mean, I think they got 3 or 4 different broken up units. Archery, sure. I think you can go hunt it every year, but it's so much private ground. It's just having a connection is the big thing in Nebraska there.
Well, I know. Well, you probably know Joe, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Joe's a pretty good buddy of mine, but he killed, and I'm going to say this wrong, so whatever, but he for sure has, I'm saying top 3. He killed a top 3 archery mule deer in Nebraska. And like in my mind, I never really put Nebraska towards the top of the list when you start thinking that top end 190 plus stuff, but he killed an absolute hammer. And I'm saying this wrong because like I can't remember, but I swear he told me it's like top 3 all time, and it's a mega.
Yeah. I mean, you get on the right place out there where they can get some age on them.
Yep.
They can do it, but boy, it's dry.
Well, yeah, crunch, crunch, crunch too, trying to
Yeah.
get to them.
Yeah.
All right, so you might be pulling a Nebraska rifle tag. I like the sounds of that.
Maybe grab a leftover or something in Colorado for some high country mule deer stuff. Other than that, just kind of building some points. Didn't draw my Arizona elk tag. Go figure.
Yeah, weird.
But
But
yeah,
when you do,
but when I do, when I'm 65, I'll have a good chance of shooting a really
absolutely.
big one. Whitetails, I'm not sure what'll happen this fall. I'll throw the cameras out in September and roll the dice and go from there probably.
Yeah, yeah.
But I got a mule deer bug right now, Kurt.
I can tell.
That's all I can think
Yeah.
about.
Well, you went to Colorado and hammered a pig with old Gary Hubble.
Shout out Gary Hubble, UC
Absolutely.
Colorado Brokers.
He's a stud.
You need anything Colorado.
Ranch Brokers, UC Ranch Brokers, Colorado, or Colorado Ranch Brokers. I always screw this up even when I'm with Gary.
Yeah.
I screwed it up when we podcasted, but
He'll correct us.
if he was sitting here, he'd have me corrected already. But yeah, definitely shout out to Gary and his team.
Yeah, man, when I went out there to hunt, him and Doris, his wife, they're such good people.
Top notch.
Invite me over for supper. I went to church with them.
Yeah, awesome.
Church potluck with them on Sunday morning.
I love
We had
it.
a blast.
Turtle and I got to go out and do some work on it was actually a super cool property / business because it was an outfitting business that had some real estate with it. And I think it's under contract. I don't want to toot a horn that doesn't need tooted yet, but I'm pretty sure they got it under contract. But dude, when we were out there, it was so awesome. Like it was a 6-7 mile horseback ride into the place. And I mean, it was awesome.
I saw that listing.
Super cool.
Those guys are – you need anything in Colorado, those guys are the ones to deal with. Him and Jake, they're just –
best in the business.
They're on top of their game.
Yep. Can't say enough about those guys. But that was awesome. I mean, I knew you were going out there, and then it was like whatever. When the text hit my phone, I'm like, shocker. What have you been there, 12 hours or something crazy?
Yeah, full long day.
Yeah, full day of hunting. Air quotes, hunting.
Well, Gary told us at our training was it July?
Yeah, it was.
He said, call him. I asked him, I said, Gary, if I get a tag, will you help me out, find me a place to go? Like, yeah, sure. I don't think he thought I was serious.
Sure.
Called him, Gary, I got a tag.
I'm coming out.
Can you help me? So, yeah, it was awesome.
Well, now you owe him a big Iowa whitetail, I'm sure. He'll hold you to it.
That or a good day of pheasant hunting.
When he's got legit dogs, like super legit dogs. So I can see pheasant hunting taking priority for sure, but
that's a long drive to shoot some birds, but
it is.
We can set him up when he comes out. I think he's planning on coming out this fall sometime. He was going to in like December or before our season ended.
Sure.
But it got freaking cold and he's got a trailer that he pulls his dogs with, so when he does that, we'll have to get a hold of a bunch of you guys and
we should do a big
field day.
It just got loud in here, sorry. What we ought to do is try to plan something, and I'm not saying opening day, but closer to opener, the first couple weeks of season, and I'd love to see it. I've never, ever bird hunted Western Iowa. Game on. Self-invite. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate you teeing that up for me, buddy.
I got a German short hair. We might know a few spots.
Yeah, I know a guy. No sheds yet? You been out?
Oh, picking up a few here and there. Honestly, with this nice warmer weather, I've been out brush cutting corn down and working on equipment, getting, stuff ready for food plots, rebuilding the planter.
Yeah, I seen that.
Dude, I'm going to be next week, if it's nice, I do dry fertilizer on all my plots that I do for other guys too. I'm getting that stuff out. I'll be disking next week and first week of March.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. That's awesome.
Well, it's awesome, but I sure hope we catch some rain or we're going to have a long year in Iowa.
Yeah, it's definitely dry, but I'm still home helping the family farm in spring and fall. I plant half our crop in the spring, so getting this food plot stuff done a little ahead of time is a blessing.
Right. Yeah, especially if you can get them all prepped up and ready to rock. I mean, that's a huge piece of the equation.
Yeah, for sure.
So, well, good, man. I appreciate you jumping on. Like I said, we've only been talking about doing this for probably a year.
Yeah, close to.
Or something. And I'm glad this worked for this weekend. I mean, we're looking forward to being down here with the whole team. Like I said, if and this won't even get published. I was going to say, if you're here, come see us, but we'll be here every year. This is a great show for you guys. It's a great show for us. And in my opinion, it's kind of the granddaddy of all the outdoor shows, or big buck shows at least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been coming here since I was, yay tall.
Right.
And it's been jam-packed and full of people every single year.
Come gawk at all the hogs that got hammered last year.
Yeah, there'll be some nice deer come in for sure, and be a good time.
Right on. Well, we'll call that a wrap on this one, Luke. Appreciate your time, buddy. We'll stay in touch. We'll do it again.
Sounds good, Kurt.
All right,
Until
take
next
care.
time.